Hi everyone, welcome to the Tropic Marin channel. Today we're going to talk about water chemistry once again. It's a very hot topic right now. There's a lot of development in analysis methods and products on the market, of course. Two versions of their ICP analysis. The ICP water analysis that gives you all the elements that can be measured with the ICP, and one that gives a little extra, like elements that you cannot measure with the ICP, nutrients and all the general parameters. But there's also a video here on that channel, so feel free to check that out. What we talk about today is the halogen solution of the block analysis system. It's a combined solution. There's more than one element in this bottle, and the reason behind it, there's also a video or multiple videos I think by now on this channel, so you can watch that. Basically a Tropic Marin combined elements that are used in a similar ratio and fulfill a similar function into one solution instead of the single elements. The single element solutions are still available, of course, for those who want to have the full control over every relevant element, but generally, these 5 combined solutions should allow you to appropriately counter any deficit that may arise, because every tank is different, right? We have very good systems to meet the needs of our organisms, but of course sometimes they need more halogens, or they need more calcification supporting elements, more trace metals for whatever reason. There's a billion reasons they can use certain element groups more, maybe the microbial communities, a lot of general metabolism of the whole system, but also the interactions between bacteria and the interactions between bacteria and the organisms among each other. They produce defensive compounds. There's a lot of chemistry going on, so it's always good to keep a good eye on the chemistry, and the ICP allows you to have a good overview of your water chemistry and the needs of your system. So we recommend to stream your water with an ICP analysis. You can potentially detect deficiencies in certain element groups or certain individual elements. The other aspect of the combined solutions is that we have one indicator element. In this case it's iodine, that can be measured relatively well, because some of the elements that occur in very low concentrations are hard to measure, or the data are not that accurate. But with the indicator element, if there's a deficiency, we can usually assume that the other ones in this group also could use some input, and that's how the system works. Basically, test the water, you find a deficiency, you get the recommendation what to use. Every tank is different. That's all very complex ecosystems. You have one of the other elements in a high concentration. Let's say fluorine is in a high concentration, and at the same time iodine is relatively low. Then it would make sense to use the single element iodine to elevate the iodine levels without further increasing the fluorine. I mean, these cases are not too common as far as I know, but then you still have the ability to counteract the deficiencies appropriately. Now let's talk about the actual solution that is standing here in front of me. It's the halogen solution. I mean, selenium is not a halogen, but iodine, fluorine and bromine are halogens. Halogens are really reactive elements that are involved in many metabolic functions and in the immune system also of corals. They are really relevant in the immune system of other marine organisms. Bromine, for instance, is often found in brominated organic compounds, especially defensive compounds that can be antibacterial. Fluorine is also important basically in the immune system, but also supports the calcification. It can be incorporated as calcium fluoride or sodium fluoride into the coral skeleton. Iodine is also relevant for the defensive processes, but also various metabolic functions, and protein synthesis can be supported. Different organisms can have different demands for these elements, like iodine, for instance. I think most of you know the nori algae we use for sushi or to feed our wonderful tangs and other herbivores. They draw a lot of iodine from the water. They are a good source of iodine. So if you have one of these beautiful macroalgae dominated tanks, then you probably have a high consumption of iodine. Iodine is also used a lot in soft corals. They can use up quite a bit of iodine, and the composition of this solution is aimed at a mixed tank. But of course, it's very helpful if you have one of these really specific tanks, like a macroalgae tank. You can also use these solutions. Selenium is also in this bottle. It's not a halogen. It's a trace element that is fulfilling similar functions as the other ones. Also, light protection is one topic that the other ones are also involved in. So light is super important for our corals, photosynthesis, and for the color development. So the corals that we like the most are tropical reef corals, and they experience very high light intensities during the day. So especially in the shallow, they get crazy amounts of light. But the corals need these compounds also for their UV and light protection to produce compounds like reflective proteins or fluorescent proteins that protect the corals from the excess light, and that is also reflected in their coloration. So if they get a lot of light and you want them to produce really nice colors, they need the elements to do that. Like trace metals are really important for that, but also the halogens are involved in these processes. Back to the selenium. All the halogens in this bottle and selenium can be incorporated into organic compounds, like carbon compounds that contain these elements and can support the skeletal growth, meaning the coral skeleton is sturdy and grows as it should. Selenium can also act as a protection from oxygen radicals, meaning these highly reactive oxygen compounds that can do cell damage, and selenium can prevent these or reduce the cell damage by oxidative stress. But also for us here at Reef, we produce corals through sexual reproduction, meaning we have them spawn and then have the larvae develop and settle. And selenium is also involved in the egg production. If they have a lasting deficiency in selenium, then you probably get less eggs. That's nothing we want. So we always make sure that everything is available in the concentrations that they would like to have. Very important topic, of course, how do I use it? Every bottle comes with a description of how to use it in various languages. So in German, here's English. We have the standard dosage of 2 milliliters per 100 liters, and that adds 17.5 microgram of iodine. At the same time, it adds 22.2 microgram of fluorine and 8.7 of bromine and 0.01 of selenium. That's a standard dosing. There's also a recommended maximum dosage, which is the 4 milliliters per 100 liters, and that equals 35 micrograms of iodine, which is quite a bit, I would say. So 35 micrograms should get you out of most severe deficiencies. I wouldn't go higher than the 35 or maybe 40 micrograms per day. For those who like to read, you can peel that one off. And then there's a more detailed description of the elements in there, what they do, what they're relevant for, and the whole block analysis system. There's also a video about, or multiple videos now about that system on the channel, so feel free to check these out. Testing first, dosing second. That can prevent unhappy surprises. It's always good to keep an eye on the water chemistry, and then should deficiencies arise. One aspect is also the trace elements in the really low concentrations. If you do one ICP and it's a bit lower, not detectable, then of course you can counteract, but it's more important to do regular ICPs to really see what's the demand of the tank. And then if it turns out that your system has a higher demand of certain trace elements or halogens, you get to know your tank much better and your organisms will be happier. Yeah, if there's any comments or questions, feel free to post these and we'll make sure to answer. With that being said, happy testing, happy dosing, happy reefing. See you next time. Bye.